Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, celebrating filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. In today's episode, we are delighted to partner with two wonderful film festivals. So at Dinard British and Irish Film Festival last month, we caught up with accomplished actor Bríd Brennan about her immense career on stage and screen and her latest film, Aontas. We'll be reporting live next week from the Foyle Film Festival, which takes place in Derry from the 19th until the 30th of November. So keep an eye out for some fantastic films. Just some of the ones screening are the opening film Trad, which is on the 19th of November by writer-director Lance Daly. And this road trip film is a magical and joyous celebration of Irish music. Bríd's film Aontas will be there on the 29th of November, and it stars Bríd opposite Carrie Crowley in an Irish language heist film with a twist. And writer-director Damien McCann and co-writer Sarah Gordon will both be there for a post-screening Q&A. And the closing film, Rental Family, is on the 30th of November, and it's an iconic love letter to the city of Tokyo, which features a really moving performance from Brendan Fraser. So all that barely touches the surface of a really wonderful lineup. So check out the full programme now on foylefilmfestival.org. But first, back to the gorgeous French seaside for a moment, where we spoke with Bríd Brennan about embodying Cait for Aontas. So thank you so much for chatting with us.
Not at all.
Now, I want to go in to Aontas, and it is just such an exciting, fun, like heartfelt in a warm way, but like intense, authentic film. But I really wanted to talk to you about your process as an actor. So you've worked for stage and screen for like such a kind of sustained period of time. I was wondering now, as someone who's really established in the craft and so talented, what's your process in creating an actor? Like, what do you see your role as, and how do you relate to the actors, ever to the characters?
Well, thank you. Thank you for your compliment. This is a whole new adventure for me, because this is the second film. Aontas is the second film I've done in the Irish language with the same director, with Damien McCann. The first one was Dinard. And I'm not an Irish speaker. I learnt it when I was a child, at school. And we had a pretty thorough education in Irish at primary school, I'm talking about. And then I did it a little bit at my next school. But it had gone, sadly, any that I had. And so when Damien first phoned me about the first film, Dinard, 5-6 years ago, I was visiting friends in Spain. And he asked me, had I any Irish? And I said, I can say thank you. And I pushed, I could maybe come up with a few more phrases, but that wasn't a problem for Damien. Yeah. So when I did that first film, Dinard, it was pretty terrifying as an actor. And I actually realised while I was doing it that I had to forget about acting. It was about how I got that across that language and how I managed to speak it, because your mouth isn't even ready. Yeah. So it's a whole new experience for me. This is like a whole new career for me.
Wow.
And the actors I was with in Dinard, the leads, were so supportive and fantastic. All Irish speakers, of course. And I felt that I was holding everybody back, that, a burden on the film. But it didn't feel like that in the end. And I loved it. I realised it was exhilarating. I was using my brain in a way, but it didn't feel like an acting experience. I just had to speak those lines in a language I wasn't accustomed to, that my mouth even wasn't accustomed to.
So does that take a lot more work? Like, learning lines, I'm sure, is a grueling experience in and of itself, but then actually to learn to give them meaning.
All of that is a whole new, I'm looking at this as a whole new career. It's a new adventure, certainly, for me. So that when Damien asked me again, I amazed myself by saying yes immediately. And but I have a great coach, Orla. She's one of the producers of Aontas, and she coaches me on every line, the pronunciation, everything. So it gives me, it adds something, because now I really want to get that right. And when I watched Aontas yesterday for about the fourth time, and I don't even usually do that, and I like it more and more every time. I just get so absorbed by it. But I find that I'm not looking at the subtitles. Of course, I know it and I know other people's lines, but now I'm listening to the language and understanding the film through the language. And I just think it's great. I just need to get up to the Gaeltacht stuff in Glencullen and immerse myself in a course there to get the confidence to speak it, because I just love that language. But it's a whole new thing for me. And as far as you were asking me about getting into parts, I've been doing it long enough that I don't really think about it very much. But with this I do, because it's so different for me. And when Damien sent me the script for Aontas, I thought, well, this is really good. I loved the writing. Him and Sarah, his partner, had written the screenplay. I loved it. I really got that character of Cait, being a pariah in her society, running on the outside of the fence like a lone wolf.
But also so angry and gives zero facts. Do you know, like, I think that it's so often people are written like the warm, quiet Irish mammy cliche, and I was like, there's none of that. I don't have that in here. Yeah.
Well, it's very attractive for an actor to play a character like that, especially if you worry that you've been a bit typecast and stuff. But I thought she was funny. It was a good opportunity to curse. I really enjoyed that. But also, I mean, she's sad, ultimately. But I think they're very real, these characters, very believable characters. And in a situation that definitely stretches everybody, a situation of desperation, it happens in life.
It's such a heightened heist movie, like high octane explosions. There's like a lot of explosions, like gunshots.
Yes.
And yet, like, it is so grounded in authenticity. And I think that's the sort of unusual. I think I was chatting to Damien, he was saying the comps were Happy Valley, and I was like, I would 100% watch a series where, Carrie's character solves crimes. Yes, antagonist.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like, there's that kind of like tangible grasp on the world, but yet the way the narrative unfolds is quite challenging. And was that something that you were sort of conscious about, kind of playing things neutral so there's no inference? Were you thinking about the structure, or do you just sort of try and be present? What would be your...
Well, both. You obviously, you feel you have to be present. And with a role like this, and in a film like this, you just have to be in it. You just care so much about your character and the story, but you are acting backwards, obviously, because of the structure of the film. So it's keeping that all in your head as well, where you are, how you would be, going backwards. Damien, of course, was a great guide, because he knew exactly what it was he wanted, which is wonderful to work when he knew exactly how he wanted it. You're very well supported then as an actor. And it was the same with Dinard, felt very, very well supported, and you feel this is a safety net under you.
Yeah.
And
that is, like, I will say, and for someone so established and so known, that is a big leap. Do you know, like, to do something in Irish, and people can be so funny about their accents as well.
Yes.
About being from the right thing. So it is, I suppose you have to go into it with people that you really feel have your back.
That's a real privilege, actually, and it's a great opportunity as an actor when you find that. When you find a project like that, or something where you can really work with, enjoy other people, it's very stimulating and creative. And because you're so close to the heart of it, low budget, you're close to everybody, the crew, you enjoy the crew, you enjoy all the people doing their job with incredible passion and professionalism. And I found that in both times. I found that very much working in the north of Ireland now. Just great crews and really skilled people, and very easy to get on with. I just enjoyed that enormously, and fun. And Damien's great fun. But again, that group of actors, the actors I worked with in Dinard, Peter Coonan, Shanti O'Malley and Claire, they were just such great actors and wonderfully warm human beings. It's very supportive and great fun.
Yeah, and you get that sense on the set, because like that I was kind of pushing around about the budget, and I was like, oh, but it feels like Sitting Car, but it's not Sitting Car, but it didn't have that same kind of like set budget, but yet there's all these separate worlds built. Like you've all these different locations that are quite authentic, and then production design, and then violence, which is always a tricky thing to do. And in terms of like getting the physicality of those kind of fighting scenes, was that like a tricky thing to coordinate?
It was hard work when I think of it. And I was certainly up for it. There was no, yes, did we have we didn't have a fight director. Goodness, I don't remember that. But yes, of course, they were difficult. It's difficult, but you just don't even think at the time. You're just in it and you're doing it. And when I was watching it yesterday, especially that fight scene in the bank, I thought, yes, of course, that was exhausting, but you just keep going and doing it again and again and again. And I think it's because you just get so absorbed by the character, by the story, that you don't stop to think. You're just doing it.
And in terms of working on creating Cait and building her with Damien, what is that process like then? Are you like, is this conversations? Do you bring stuff to him? Does he give you a brief and then you absorb that, or is it just from the script?
Well, I think the initial conversation is about how the character is you see this character like a lone wolf, or like running on the outside of the fence with the community in there, as I see Cait. And Damien, of course, saying, of course, she's a pariah. But you do, that basically is your conversation. And then thereafter, in scenes, Damien might ask you for something specific, but I think you get to know what a director wants, and you know that humor is very important to Damien, and because he knows those characters before you get to them, and you have to take some of it for yourself. You have to survive but he knows those characters. Himself and Sarah have written them, created them. They know so they're there for you. You're offered them, and it's a delight to be offered something like that.
And your characters, are they you, or are they something imagined and stepped into wholly, or something in between?
They're a mix of things. There might be somebody you know very, very well, some element of something you've seen in somebody's life, or elements that you pull together, and a number of people you might have known, but a lot of it is you. You have to. That's the only way you can do it. You just have to use yourself. But I'm inclined, used to, when I get a part, I look for, as you often do, no matter how horrible a character, you look for something redeeming. And I don't think Cait is horrible. I think she's quite tragic, really, but that's funny and tough.
I enjoyed her.
Yeah,
I felt like if I identified with someone, it would have been her most.
Yeah, she's a great survivor. I mean, I wonder very often, that's one of my big questions about, especially doing stuff, how do people survive in real life? How do people survive terrible traumas in their childhood? And a lot of people just find a way of doing it. And that was one of the big sort of investments for me in that character, is how did this woman survive all these years? How did she, without any love, without anybody, and wanting clearly some love from her sister, not that she probably wouldn't even have called it love, but some recognition, some warmth. Because, of course, as far as she was concerned, as a child, she sacrificed something for her sister and herself. I felt very drawn to the character in the story for that main reason, and she could have gone on forever like that. But there was a little hook. She was offered a little hook where she thought she could come closer, and that she took it. And then felt she was made a fool of, but to find something in herself to then really help her sister. I think it's a wonderful, to me, it's a wonderful story. Those sort of delicate little details, very detailed, Damien and Sarah as well in their writing. They really think it through.
Yeah. What has it been like then watching it with audiences? Because it is just as so unexpected the whole time.
I'm still learning from it, watching it, and that's surprising to me because of its structure and the way you think your way through it. And yesterday was very interesting because I watched it again for the fourth time maybe. So now I'm listening and finding that I'm understanding more, but I'm also watching 2 rows of subtitles. So I'm thinking about the Irish and understanding the Irish, but I'm also watching the French because I'm trying to get my French back. So it's, it's very good for the brain. But watching it with an audience, I thought I'd be much more aware of the audience, but I wasn't. I'm still really strangely drawn back into that story and moved again by it, moved by, the other actors' performances, moved by the storytelling. I'm just really sort of in love with the film, actually, strangely.
It's such a good film. And thank you so much for chatting about it. Now, here's on for the awards tonight. Good luck with those.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for chatting with us.
Okay, thank you.
So Vicki Rock and Kris Kelly are the husband and wife team behind the award-winning boutique creative studio Enter Yes. So their bold coming-of-age short, Bulls in Water, directed and written by Kris and produced by Vicki, is about to premiere at Foyle. Thanks so much for chatting with us.
No worries. Cool. Thank you for having us. The origins of Enter Yes, we're a creative studio. We kind of dabble in different areas of VFX and animation, but where a lot of VFX is split between like doing VFX and post-production, to keep that balance and keep projects coming in and cash flow. Our split is very much a sort of creative studio where we create our own content or work on our own projects, and then we might be doing something like VFX, or we might be doing a service gig. So I don't know, things like The Mill were a bit of an inspiration for setting up, where they really created innovative, cool kind of stuff, but then also did commercials and visual effects and sort of blended those two. So when I set the studio up first, it came off the back of kind of winning a Screen Ireland. At the time it was Irish Film Board award. Made a short animation got nominated for a film BAFTA, and then that sort of cemented this idea in my head that it was a creative studio. We weren't just like service providers. Along that journey of working on various projects, then myself and Vicki then kind of teamed up, and there was just a complementary kind of skill overlap where I never get back the emails. I'm really, really terrible at that end of things. And Vicki was really good at that end of things, come from client services.
Yes,
and
my
stuff.
background is ad agencies, client services and account management in Dublin. So we complement each other. Kris is the creative, and I'm the one that kind of
The business.
yeah.
Well, in fairness, we do kind of. It's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing, and I think I can see it in other kind of duos or people that work together in that sense. Like I would have had a really solid business sort of relationship with like NI Screen and stuff like that, and then other certain clients, and I knew that. Like scaling up and trying to manage loads of people, it's nearly impossible on your own as well from that point of view. But we very much kind of wear which hat we need to wear to suit whatever we're doing. So for example, we're kind of starting an animation this week actually, and it's with a first-time director, and Vicki's pure business producer hat on that, and then I take a back seat and just kind of make sure the creative pipeline is going to work, and that all the people that care about the creative stuff in the studio are all sitting in the right place, if you know what I mean. So that then we'd switch again for something else, depending on what we were.
Depending on the project.
Yeah. And I'm always concerned I don't want to look like I have no sort of business sense whatsoever, and I just sit there rubbing colors on a wall. Then people like NI Screen would be like, hey, we give you this fund for this. We didn't realize you were that kind of creative. But so it's kind of like wearing both those hats.
Yeah. Enter Yes has been open, I think, 10 years. So we've been working together with the studio Enter Yes, working on our own IP, and then working across services, TV, features, game within Northern Ireland, and then internationally as well. We've been very lucky. And yeah, busy fools.
Yeah, it's just striking that balance between doing service work for people and then creating enough space so the studio can do kind of creative things, and then push its own IPs like Bulls in Water, Wind in the Shadow. It was a co-production, but Kings of Shumava, again co-production with Aontas Films in Prague. To do a feature length like that was, and see it in theaters, was really cool, and it's an amazing experience, and it gives you the confidence to start a plan for bigger things and move forward.
Yeah, and we feel like we have to kind of have our toes in a couple of fingers in a couple of different pies, just because to keep a studio thriving and interesting, creative, it's great to be able to hop from animation to games to
Yeah.
interactive
I,
to
I
feature documentaries. Like we do it all.
Yeah, no, and I think we are sort of tonally constrained. Arguably, you could say that's how we aren't spread too thin. We don't chase kids kind of content and, preschool animation and stuff like that. We're very much focused on a certain kind of tone of animation, and it's usually in the more mature documentary kind of category a lot of the time. Like we have helped out, people like
Yeah.
Banijay and stuff like that with early stage concept work that breaks that kind of rule. So we're very, very kind of medium agnostic and genre agnostic, but we kind of lean into what we like, which is something that is more sort of mature in its
Gritty.
theme. Like things like Wind in the Shadows is an example of that.
And what are your kind of favorite projects to get in? Like, what are the ones that when they're kind of coming across your desk that kind of give you that little leap for joy?
Like it's usually stuff that has a bit of bite to it, that has a bit of texture. Kind of we've done a lot of service work on documentaries, and that's always really, really interesting because you're learning stuff as you go along as well. Then
I think as well, it's kind of anything that has got this sort of positive sort of social message or helps people, or animation used in a way that's not just about simply entertainment. It's like it has to be entertaining, it has to be amazing, but if it can have a kind of deeper message or meaning or cultural connection or something like that, it's usually more interesting to us. That I think stems from when I first started, and then when Vicki joined, it was sort of overlap. We were doing a lot of stuff for like BBC News Round and stuff like that would be, animation used to maybe tell a certain story of a child with parents with alcohol problems, and how other people's lives are and how their experiences are. Maybe you can't really articulate that well with live action or on budget or effectively, and animation was the perfect kind of medium. And things like that always felt like it felt good to be working on a project like that and be part of that, when there was like an extra benefit just outside of the animation itself.
Yeah, like we've worked across breastfeeding animations, sightseers in Africa animations,
Language,
the Irish language in Belfast, and then that really complements our own kind of filmmaking journey as well. So it's kind of a nice full circle.
Yeah, it could definitely, because the reality is, if we could survive, I think just doing our own IP, our own work, we probably would. Like we enjoy the service projects when people bring them to us, and we like put our heads down and we give it 100%. The reality of it is some of them, you can see over the last 10 years, and if I've been in this 20 years, budgets haven't grown that much within that space. So it gets tighter and harder, and it's harder to manage a team. And then when you're doing your own project, you can see very clearly that some of those stresses aren't coming from the project itself or the team. They're just to do with higher powers and budgets. So when you've got a budget, you can really kind of make it work and do something sort of interesting. So there's like loads of reasons why doing our own work is more satisfying in that sense. And then again, it's that we pull that work towards the kind of genre area that we like. And if I think of when starting Bulls and Water, when we put our heads down to kind of work out what we were going to do for that, it was like, what sort of films do we like? And things for me were like La Haine or, City of God or something like this, where they were, they're films where you've got a kind of, like Vicki says, a kind of grit to them and a realism, but at the same time, they're very, very entertaining and very, you go on a journey with those characters. They're very character driven, but they've got some sort of social message, or they're asking some sort of questions. Yeah. So, that's it.
We also enjoy doing the more commercial gigs as well, because it gives you clout. Because I don't think our family really knows what we do, but if we say, oh, we've worked on that TV ad, or we've done some promo for Mission Impossible, or like all the nieces and nephews were marketing comms for Aquaman. Yeah, so that kind of stuff gives you clout.
And then there's some, we've been on series stuff, Netflix stuff, BBC stuff, where people have brought us on the project because there's a certain visual style we have, or a kind of sensibility that is useful to that show. And that's also a nice kind of overlap when it's sort of it's not that you're just the cheapest person to do the VFX, that there's an added benefit. And those are the ones that we try to seek out and try and cultivate those kind of relationships with clients and stuff. But so it's a bit of a balance and act at the moment that I think we do well enough.
So you guys are a husband and wife team and you're parenting, and I presume a lot of the like projects will have like hard and fast deadlines, and you know there's everything is due in and all at the same time, and funding application time is a lot. How do you guys juggle that?
It's difficult. It's just all about time management and just being able to recognize things are getting a bit heavy with deadlines and stuff, just to keep it in the office and, you know, take time. But yeah, it's just all about time management. We work well as a team, so
yeah. And then, in fairness, Vicki always says this in a way that it's difficult because when you get a rejection or a no, it's that everybody feels it at the same time. And if you're not in a dynamic like that, then maybe you can sort of switch off and get into somebody else's kind of groove where that's not the case. But then you have to also look at it from the glass half full kind of perspective as well, where it's like when you do get a win, or like say win and IFTA, it's like both of us on stage and we both get to enjoy that kind of high and
show the kid that.
And do they think it's cool? Like, do they?
Absolutely not.
One of them kind of gets it. The other two are like, whatever.
Yeah, no, the family kind of understand, and everybody around understands what we're doing, because it's a pretty clear that we're taking it serious. But at the same time, you know, we don't, the type of content we try to create and the kind of clients that we try to chase and keep in the studio, it's in line with that kind of like sort of real message, real life kind of thing. So it, you know, it's not as difficult as you'd think to manage those boundaries, because we're trying to do something positive, and then at the same time raising a family is super positive, and all of those things kind of complement. So for example, if we were on a big TV series called Silver Point, like 26 episodes, all VFX and all these creatures, and you know, having that perspective where you're like want to put out content or complement this series in a way, it's like it's the sort of thing that you'd want younger people to engage with and enjoy, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of it's a benefit, I think.
Yeah, like
more than it's not.
The day to day, getting all your emails and your spreadsheets done from 7 till 8:30 in the morning, and then 7 till 10 in the evening, and working around their schedule. But it also, in this industry, it's amazing to be able to bring our daughter to do a camera test down before we shoot a film, and have the kids kind of integrated in that. Yeah. Like when we were doing Bulls and Water, it was filmed across a weekend last year, and it kind of clashed a bit with our daughter starting school. So it was kind of managing that, the two of us being away, kind of making sure that emotionally we were there, physically we were there. So it's a struggle, it's a juggle, but it definitely, the cons outweigh the pros, outweigh the cons. Being able to have a bit of flexible school runs.
Yeah, I think it's in line with what we're producing and what our plan is. So it kind of makes sense to us.
Like, how do you manage like working on your own IP and like finding time for your own creative work and like creating those stories and having time for them to ruminate, and then managing like a slate of other projects as well? Do you find that sometimes one gets a little bit overpowered by the other?
Yeah, naturally, like
wrinkles.
Yeah,
each wrinkle is a project.
No, the balance is like we're not in control of that balance. So in a way, it sometimes gets overwhelming in one space or the other. So for an example would be there'd just be too much commercial work in, and it would take up all the time, and we'd have no space to work on any creative stuff or stuff of our own kind of IP. And that's happened a few times, and it kind of matures you as a company as well, because you have to realize that you have to say no to certain projects, that it's about creating a cash flow for the studio and a stability for the studio, but not necessarily taking all of the stuff, if you know what I mean, or trying. And I think that's a good message to a lot of people out there as well. It's like to sort of, there's only so much you need to be able to survive and create stability. And after that, then it's about reinvesting some of that effort and time in the other space, which complements it. And then
it
it,
comes
it
back.
feels counterintuitive to say no to a project, but if it frees up time so that you end up doing something new or creative, then it works as a calling card for future projects. So it's kind of, there's a maturity, I think, that comes with that of saying no. Another, on the other end of the spectrum, it can be a lot, it can be very taxing and can be very time consuming to start creating a project and putting it out there and doing applications. And sometimes this commercial work can act as a bit of a break and a kind of necessary kind of breather between kind of heads down. One thing we definitely do is we share the creative responsibility when it's like, what is this going to be when it goes out into the world? At the moment, as in, I'm sure we'd be open to change on it, but we very much are. I go into a room and work out the seed of an idea, and then we chat about it, and then it grows from there. So those two things are at the moment still kind of separate. So that gives us a dynamic that kind of works. So we're not clashing over, those kind of things. So yeah.
And tell me as well about this process. So you're working on kind of getting your scripts right, Kris. Would you kind of like, when it's finished, then get fresh eyes from Vicki, or is it that you like to get as clean as possible, that feedback?
Like, again, if I like, one of the first things I was saying was I'm like terrible at getting back the emails and terrible at time management, and in a way that Vicki isn't, in the same way. I will leave that creative work to the 11th hour every time, and it's almost like a fight or flight kind of response to an application.
Brain chemistry kicks in. I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, no, that's a good point actually, because there's the other dynamic between us that I think is actually quite important is that Vicki's much more of a morning early person and I'm much more of a later evening person. So there is this sort of separation of space as well, where you get. So we're not sitting there beside each other, husband and wife, pressing each key on the keyboard. It's kind of, it's kind of, there are moments where we get to, where I would imagine Vicki would be, okay, well, it is the 11th hour. He's finally showed me something, because I'm not going to submit something without both of us kind of agreeing to liking it. I would then say, hey, would you have a look at this? Whether it's close to being finished or just the first draft, there's no rule. It's just whatever it gets to at that stage. Sometimes it can be closer to the end. Sometimes it can be super early draft.
Yeah, and then as a producer and a wife, I have to trust Kris's creative process, and that is his creative process. So when I get the script couple of days before an application is due, I know he's going to mull over it and work on it like to the point where it's going to be near good to go anyway. So it works well.
But like Vicki doesn't always like it as well. It's to be fair, and it is also like I go back and then completely redraft the thing. There's plenty of examples where I went back and like started from scratch half a day before.
Yeah,
I'd say that's fun for budgeting and planning. And
yeah. Great.
But I, to be fair, I think some of these creative processes, and if like Vicki gives me the creative label and Vicki takes the business label in that sense, then some of these creative processes I honestly, personally don't think can be managed in the same way. I think they're organic. They fall into the category of art, and sometimes I think, at least in our industry, I can see people getting, in my opinion, confused between craft, commerce, and art, and those are not, they're not the same things. You can do craft for the love of it. You can do commerce for simply because you just want to make money off this thing, and then art is just this other category that is not connected to those two. And I think I like to believe that when I'm trying to create a script, and if I think of Bulls and Water, it was, for me, I wanted to just explore kind of like the mindset of a coming of age kind of male and the pressures coming in from outside. I could see for my sons, again, connected to family and kind of stuff like that, just basically a kind of pressure that I felt there was a lot of toxicity and a lot of pressure to be a certain type of male. And I felt, okay, well, I want to do a script about that, where it's maybe not super hard hitting. It's not adolescent. It's not that kind of story. It's just somebody kind of coming to terms with who they want to be and pushing back in their own kind of way. And that's where that came from. But like, was that verse virgin? No, it was like third maybe.
But the joys and the benefits of living together as well at these processes, I might not see the version of a script when I want to see the version of the script when I'm trying to do budgets and crew and stuff like that. But because there's always an open line of communication, that I always have an understanding of where the script is going. Like, we'll talk about, is it for shorts, is it a 2-day script or shoot? Is it 3 days?
Yeah, they like some of those things where they're being dictated by the budget. So, you know, if I wrote a script that was like 11 pages long and our budget really is only going to cover something that's 3 or 4, then, you know, that there would be an inexperience on my part if I did that. So I try to stay within the realms of what I know Vicky's going to be able to manage, if it is a script that works. The other thing that I think is a dynamic that's super important, and I think about it with because our studio is like an inclusive space, and like we've had lots of very different people in the studio over years, and we want it to be a safe space, inclusive space. And one of the things that I always think about in our industry that's quite difficult to manage is rejection and that sort of negativity that comes with it. And that's another thing that I think are dynamic, that if you weren't a husband and wife duo, that if you were just two friends or whatever, it's like having somebody that can manage rejection in a well. Like Vicky's way better at managing rejection than me. I like the worst in the. I don't think I've ever met anybody worse than me. I would imagine there's some sort of super celebrity that's really terrible with it, but like I do not take a no, we don't like your script very well at all. And Vicky manages those sort of emotions in the house way better. So again, there's another positive.
We went to a BAFTA talk, I think it was last year, of Shane Meadows, and he said every time a creator or every time you get a no, it's somebody saying no to your inner child. And it's like, oh, you really just have to take that into consideration, the rejection in this industry.
Yeah, and like even people like NI Screen that are absolutely incredibly supportive to us and always have been. Like, I have not one bad word to say about them, but they don't always say yes to us when we put things in. And even like 20 years into a relationship where you get a no for something that could be incredibly tiny, you'd be like table flip, toys out of the pram, like super upset, like not rude or anything like that, just like it's difficult industry from that point of view, because what I think it leans on is sensitive people with caring kind of perspectives.
And of creatives, you always like with your projects, you'll have your, like, they're all your babies and you like them all, but like you will always have a few favorites. So when 100%. Those are, and you know as well, like if they're rejected from certain, there's no other schemes that have that same budget, so that they're gone. Like that's it, they're drawer forever. Yeah. And that is sort of heartbreaking, because it is the Schrodinger's project as you're creating it, where it is both in existence and not in existence until the stamp is on the form. So that is devastating, because it's almost like the loss of the potential of what that could have been, and like only you probably know the full scope of what it is. You know, it's only like it's on a page until it isn't, and it's this thing, and then it's
this
gone.
Amazing thing that everyone needs to see.
My method of getting around that I've cultivated over 20 years is I approach it now from the point of view of the say Bulls and Water. Bulls and Water exists as a short noveletta kind of sort of arguably kind of poetry more than anything, just short story. And I do that now with projects. I say, well, if these people can't see the value in it, then it's going to exist in my short noveletta series, and then someday they will realize that they were totally wrong.
Oh, you'll have like people commissioning. They're like, oh, I want to develop into feature. Like, it's so strong. It's Stephen King meets Stand By Me. Like Stranger Things. I was like, let's do it. And you're like, now you see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a bit like, we were discussing, Sony selling Netflix, the Demon Hunters things. It's being aware that some people don't have a certain foresight, and I know I sound arrogant when I say this, because I'm leaning into it in a jokey kind of playful way, but also sometimes your script just isn't right for the climate or the time or whatever. And I think issue for creatives is when you start to devalue yourself or think that you start to forget that that might be the case, that you've made an application to NI Screen and they've got 5 like yours, and maybe there's somebody within a certain demographic that needs a bit more support than you do, and they kind of need a bit of help, and this time isn't your time. It doesn't mean that you or your creative work is any worse. It's just that's the selection. That's
so many factors.
The committee. And I think that for me, creating this idea in my head that it can live somewhere else allows me to just continue, if you know what I mean.
And then once you get the yes, you make it, and then you start the film festival circuit, and then you're kind of back to that, all these no's, and they don't know what they're talking about, and you get the highs and the lows of that.
And then thinking of, even again, this is another benefit overlap of having a kind of business that deals with both the creative and kind of creating our own stuff, and then service kind of work, is that we do job interviews with people that are on the other side of that, and they're applying to us to be part of an animation project. They've put their style into it, and we have to select. And I know wholeheartedly at times I will get 2 portfolios and they'd be very similar and it'd be hard to judge, and I'm going to be picking the person. My opinion, or my tuppence worth, is going to be going for the person that maybe needs that support, or maybe needs that opportunity to get into the industry, or maybe is being overlooked in a way that doesn't necessarily mean that I think that the other person's not great. And you never get the chance to explain that to the person. So it's kind of, it works both ways. And when you're in a scenario like ours where you get to see
behind all the curtains.
And 9 times out of 10, it's not that you're rejected, it's that you're not selected. It's a different thing. It's like, it's not that there was anything wrong. It's not that anything there. It's just, this time it wasn't there, but it's still devastating. But this one came across the line, and that's the most important thing. So tell me about then the process. You got your yes. What was the process like going into production then? Did you always know it was going to be virtual production?
There were... On Bulls and Water, it didn't have any...
Oh, did it not? Oh, no, what? So what was the other one we were talking about that was virtual before?
That was...
Wolf King and I.
Sorry, it was Wolf King. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Now, we have a proof of concept with None on Screen that was developed based on a script that we created with the BFI that is now called Somewhere in Between, and it's about co-parenting. We did a proof of concept in Studio Ulster. Yeah. Unfortunately, with that project, we can't say loads about that project at the moment. With Bulls and Water, it was a necessary step for us to be able to work on something like Somewhere in Between, or what we want to go on to work, which is just, we had done lots of animation stuff. We'd worked on lots of VFX and lots of documentary, but this was our first short form drama piece created in NDS, produced in NDS, and post-production done in NDS, and then kind of delivered.
Yeah, so it was our first leap to working together from the last animation, Wind in the Shadow, which was a co-production out of Orbit. It did really well. It won an IFTA, and it did a couple more awards throughout, I think, about 2 years. And then this was the next stage. And then to go from animation to live action was great. It was great fun.
Yeah, the process started with, and again, the industry is like all about personality and network and stuff like that. Because we had been on set a million times with VFX, then we were able to reach out to people very quickly and ask, would they be part of it? I had done a music video for Phil Kieran, a DJ in Belfast, and he kind of asked me, could I just go away and make something cool creatively? And I worked with the DOP Martina Knitter, who I was the DOP on Silver Point, which is a series we were on. So I was able to phone her and say, look, can you come over and do Somewhere in Between, and then also can you do this video called Monarch? So all those connections that were there were established through kind of
previous service work.
And then animation. Then we had connections to Tim and Raul and stuff, and Momeda and Sam and Par and all of them. Felix. So we have relationships both in the animation space and it was really, really fun bringing them together.
Yeah, it was nice to be able tap into that side of things. And I think for us, the biggest, I think, eye-opener will be, because we knew, but it was like when you do an animation, you're in a studio for 6 to 8 months and you don't talk to anyone, you don't really see anyone, you just see the team. But with live action, you're standing in a field till 10 o'clock at night, freezing and drinking way too much instant coffee, and that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's just a different dynamic, and I don't know. I think it definitely suits us as a studio, and we're doing an animation now, and we're taking all our years of experience and the pipeline, and we're letting newer directors come in and do stuff. So we haven't said goodbye to animation. It's more just this is us moving forward with sort of more. With our next slate of new kind of content. But like with Bulls and Water, it's always going to have some sort of visual kind of element to it. I think that's my language and style.
In terms of getting that, because it's so distinct, even that texture of the camera work and then those bold visual reds, is that something that kind of comes to you as like that you're seeing as you're creating it in your mind at script stage, or is that something you're like building with Martina?
No, it definitely was at script kind of stage, but I would bring this element in, it was a huge influence. Because I remember, in a kind of cliched way, university, you're sort of like what film learning about it. And, we were sort of taught that sound is 51% of the film. And for me, I went in with that idea of like, if I mentioned La Haine, when I think of La Haine, that sort of overhead shot and the KRS-One music, and it connected to the cultural statement, all those things. It was just like, that's, for me, film working really perfectly. For this film, the sound, I flew to Bilbao, and I have, both Vicki and I have a kind of fondness kind of for Spain, speak Spanish, and kind of have a connection there. And we were able to connect with a group in the Basque country of Spain called I, and they are a Rinchi group that sing in this, or is it singing? I'm not sure. It's kind of like calling, like pre-European language kind of calling between visuals or villages. And it was a group of, I think, 12 women that had just this incredible kind of like power or visceral kind of like, they just make this sound that is kind of very naturalistic and very, I was very overwhelmed.
Yeah. It speaks to your core.
Yeah, and that was part of this, was that there would be that this young boy would start to identify with the fact that this one-dimensional message that maybe the other kids are projecting isn't what he's feeling. And for me, it was like finding something that would represent that sort of internal voice that is genderless and is kind of not about alpha male or this toxic masculinity. It's just him. And that, in my opinion, that female voice exists as well. And then the relationship to nature and the power of that, it felt like, okay, I want to try and connect with this group. And through Tim Harrison at Omeda, he was able to arrange a session in Bilbao it was in a communal hall of a church, where we went in and mic'd up and recorded it. And that was the point where I was thinking this red kind of like bull, kind of deeper kind of palette, if I brought projections of that, so if I started doing some visual art, brought those projections, projected it, and then had, asked these incredibly talented people to perform it, bathed in this kind of red light, could we capture the performance? And so we recorded about an hour, I think, of them kind of doing different sounds and animals, and it's incredibly overwhelming. It's very similar in some respects to like the start of 2001. That kind of I don't know, I can't think what the kind of singing term is, but it's a kind of type of sound that you hear it in that part of that film as well. That this is like a primal thing that predates European language. It's like incredibly primitive in some respects. So it felt perfect for the story. That informed the red informed the sound. Then that was my kind of like, okay, I have something to hold on to. And then the other element that I wanted to connect to it was some words. the director of Saipan seen an early cut of it, Glenn Leyburn, and I said, "Hey, have a look at this and see what you think." And his kind of short answer response to me was like, lean into the poetry of it. And I know I did take that very literally, but I felt like I was reading Lorca at the time, and the connection to Spain in a different kind of way was like there's a sensitivity in those words that I really hold on to. And I wanted to bring that into the narrative from that boy's perspective, even if it's very abstracted and very, as some people might say, what's the word? You always hear producers say, don't understand something. Esoteric. And it's awfully esoteric, Kris. No, for me, this was like me trying to bring these elements together, and that's where like the palette comes from, the visuals, and that forms that with the story. Then it's just like it was a very long, difficult editing process.
Yeah, and the team were amazing as well. The DOP on this was Rye. And
Rye,
he
yeah,
was a
Rye
real
was
good
incredible.
understanding of Chris's vision. All the cast overall amazing.
Yeah, one of the really amazing things that Non Screen does as well is that they sort of encourage you to work with local talent and connect with people. And I knew Rye from camera department of Silver Point, and he was a really, really nice person. And I had never really seen any of his work, but some scheme like that kind of says, right, we'll go speak to Rye. And they turned out to be really, really talented, amazing person, perfect for the project. So these things, there's a certain amount of it is, you hear lots of people talk about it, it's just like, you got to get all the pieces, and some of them fall into place and some of them don't. You pick them back up and you keep trying.
Yeah,
it feels like that.
Towards the end, one of those pieces that were kind of joined together was we feature a song by the Northern Ireland band Chalk, and they're doing really, really well for themselves. And it transpired that the lead singer did his placement in Enter Yes like 7 or 8 years ago, so we were able to tap into that as well. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
made us feel a little bit old, but
but it was a perfect kind of shift at the end. And again, some of that red stuff is from like Casper Noao, kind of, I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, that kind of like strong, visceral kind of image. And then the sound of that, Chalk felt like the perfect kind of like way to leave. There was a little bit of a coming of the age kind of charm to it as well, in contrast to this very kind of very sort of rural, primitive kind of sound, which in fairness, actually, initially that idea came from to go speak to Tim and seek that out came from that Spanish artist, Tangana. There was a song for like some sort of Galician anthem that I heard and was like, what is that? So it's that curiosity.
Finding it and building it and making it so immersive. So it sounds like something everyone has to see in a cinema to get like that full hit of it. So it's so immersive and it's so powerful, and the performances are so good. Are you looking forward to now sharing it with everyone on the big screen in a room?
Yeah.
What's that normally like for you?
Oh, my heart is in my nose. Like it's I just find it. I can actually hear my heart beating in the quietness of the cinema.
It's so stressful. It's so stressful, and it's like, and that's, I suppose that's the other end of like watching yourself and being careful. But like, it's just like
very exciting.
Yeah,
So
I'm beyond excited because Foyle is amazing.
Yeah,
as well.
So we have our UK premiere at Foyle, and it's screening on the 30th of November, Monday at 1 p.m. The shorts. So we'll sit in the corner and
perfect example of like schedule and date kind of stuff. I would not have been able to tell you the month, never mind the day.
And Foyle is such a great film festival. Like we premiered Wind in the Shadow there 2 years ago, and Evan King is powerhouse, everything there. So we're super excited to get up to Derry.
Yeah. And I my 3 short films that I've made have all played in Foyle, and I'm really proud of that because it's like an amazing festival, and I've enjoyed each of the experiences, so it's brilliant.
But we'll still be like, oh God.
Oh yeah. Like, you don't take anything for granted, and then it kind of, from 20 years of being in the industry and 10 years of Enter Yes, I kind of have an understanding of how it works. But like Vicki was saying about that 12-year-old in you, it's like that idea of being a filmmaker or a creative, like that's what gets switched on when you're in those kind of moments and you're not these kind of shields that you try to use that you call experience, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's so beautiful, and a big congratulations, and we'll see you in Foyle.
Yeah.
Indeed, thank
Thanks
you.
a million.
So Bulls in Water will be screening on the 30th of November at the Nerve Centre as part of the Foyle Film Festival, and so will Saipan, which plays on the 23rd, starring Aina Hardwick and Steve Coogan as the two iconic opposing football figures in the infamous tete-a-tete. And The History of Sound screens on the 23rd, which is a melancholic love story anchored by a pair of astounding performances by Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor. So get your tickets now at foylefilmfestival.org, and we look forward to seeing you there.